The secret that shattered my world, it was supposed to be the perfect life. George Carson had everything anyone could wish for. He was tall, confident, and successful, with a career that had seen him rise from humble beginnings to become one of the most sought-after tech entrepreneurs in the country. His startup had recently gone public, making him a millionaire at 32. His life was filled with the kind of luxury most people only dream of, a beautiful house in the hills, fancy cars, and exotic vacations to places that seemed to exist only in movies. But what made George's life truly remarkable wasn't just his success, it was the woman by his side, Sophia. She was his rock, his muse. Beautiful, intelligent, and compassionate, Sophia was everything George had ever wanted in a partner. Their love story had captivated everyone who knew them. They had met in college, and from the moment they met, they were inseparable. She was the first person he'd confided in about his dreams of building a business from the ground up. And she had stood by him every step of the way, offering her support when things were tough. Together, George and Sophia seemed untouchable. People envied their relationship, their chemistry, their undeniable bond. They were the power couple of the tech world. But that illusion was about to be shattered in the most public way imaginable. It started on a quiet Wednesday morning. George had just returned from a business trip and was looking forward to a relaxing day at home. Sophia had planned a small dinner for the two of them, just the way they liked it, intimate, simple, and filled with laughter. The day was off to a great start, or so it seemed. As George sat down to check his emails, his phone buzzed with a notification from social media. His heart skipped a beat when he saw a post shared by someone he didn't know, with his wife's name tagged in the caption. At first, he thought it was a harmless meme or a funny picture. But then he saw it. The image was of Sophia, caught in an embrace with a man who wasn't George. The photo was blurry, but it was enough to send chills down his spine. The man was holding Sophia close, his lips brushing against her cheek, an intimacy that no one should witness. The caption accompanying the image read, "Caught red-handed in a secret relationship. Hashtag Sophia Carson hashtag cheating scandal." George froze. His mind raced. This couldn't be real. His wife? No, not Sophia. She had always been loyal, always been the one to keep their marriage strong. There had to be some mistake. He clicked on the post, hoping for some kind of explanation or context. But the comments were already flooding in, condemning Sophia for her actions. Some speculated it was a moment of weakness, while others branded her as a cold-hearted liar. He could hardly breathe. His hands trembled as he tapped on the phone to see if he could contact Sophia directly. But there was no response. His heart sank as he realized, this was bigger than he could have ever imagined. Minutes later, George's phone rang. It was Sophia's number. Sophia? George's voice trembled. George, Sophia's voice sounded distant, and her tone was filled with something he couldn't quite place. Please, just let me explain. What the hell is going on, Sophia? George demanded. His voice cracked as anger and confusion intertwined. What is this? What is he to you? I don't understand, George, please, she interrupted, her voice strained with emotion. It's not what you think. I don't know how to say this. He felt as though the ground beneath him had vanished. Then say it, he urged, his voice breaking. I can't take this. Not like this. Not with the whole world watching. For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a quiet, almost broken voice, Sophia spoke. I've been seeing someone else for the past year, George. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His mind couldn't process them. His chest tightened, and he felt the tears welling up in his eyes. No, George whispered, his voice shaky. Why, Sophia? After everything we've built. What did I do wrong? Sophia sobbed on the other end. You didn't do anything wrong, George. It's me. It's been hard for me for a long time. I've felt disconnected from you for a while now. Your work, your success, it took you away from me. And when I met him, I felt seen again. I felt important. I know it was a mistake. But it happened. I'm so sorry. George sat there, in stunned silence. His mind was racing with 1,000 questions, but none of them made sense. How could she? How could Sophia, the woman he trusted with his whole heart, betray him like this? I don't know what to say to you, Sophia, he said finally, his voice hoarse. I need time. I can't do this right now. I don't know if I can forgive you. The next few hours were a blur. George tried to process the chaos in his mind, but it felt like his world was collapsing around him. He didn't know where to turn, who to talk to. His family was in shock when they heard the news. Friends who had been there for him through thick and thin suddenly disappeared. The world seemed to have turned its back on him, and the weight of the betrayal was almost unbearable. The media storm was relentless. Social media erupted with accusations, rumors, and salacious gossip about George's marriage. The worst part was the public scrutiny. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about his life, about Sophia's affair. It was as though their personal tragedy had become entertainment for the masses. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. As George spent days alone, pacing his house, barely able to eat or sleep, he realized that there was one thing he could control: how he chose to respond to all of this. His anger was still there, raw and intense, but he couldn't let it define him. He couldn't let the world's judgment of Sophia and him define his worth. One night, after what seemed like an eternity of reflection, George decided to confront Sophia in person. He needed answers, but more than that, he needed closure. He had to know if there was any possibility of rebuilding their lives, or if it was truly the end of the road for them. They met at a quiet cafe, away from the prying eyes of the media. Sophia was visibly distraught, her eyes red from crying. She was no longer the confident, poised woman George had married. She looked lost. Sophia, George said, his voice surprisingly calm. I need to understand. I need to know if there's even a chance we could rebuild from this. Sophia stared at her hands for a long time before she looked up at him, her face filled with regret. George, I know I've destroyed everything. I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You were never the problem. It was me. I didn't know how to communicate my needs, and I lost myself along the way. George took a deep breath. I've been thinking about what happened, about what you've done. And, while it doesn't excuse anything, I realize now that I also played a role in this. I was so focused on work, on making everything perfect, that I lost sight of the person who mattered most to me. I failed you too, Sophia. Her eyes widened in surprise. You still want to try? George paused. He could see the genuine sorrow in her eyes, but he also realized something important: he wasn't the same person he had been before. He had changed. He had learned so much through this pain. But the question remained: did he want to stay in a marriage that had been broken so deeply? I don't know if we can fix this, George said slowly. I don't know if I can trust you again. But I've learned something through all this pain: I need to be true to myself. I need to heal first before I can decide anything else. And that was when George made his decision. He and Sophia parted ways. Their marriage ended not in an explosive argument, but in an understanding that sometimes, even the deepest love can't survive betrayal. But what mattered was that George had learned to forgive, not just Sophia, but himself as well. He didn't let the scandal or the public shame define him. In the months that followed, George poured himself into his work, yes, but more importantly, he focused on rebuilding himself. He traveled. He met new people. He learned to love himself again, to rediscover his passion for life. He found new hobbies, new joys, and began creating a life that was truly his. 1 year later, George stood in front of his company's new headquarters, smiling as he took in the skyline before him. His business was thriving. He had a newfound sense of peace. And while his heart still carried the scars of the past, he had learned the most important lesson: he could survive anything. Sometimes, he said to himself, the hardest lessons bring the greatest rewards. I hope George's story resonates with you. Sometimes, life will test us in ways we never imagined. But the most important thing is how we rise from the ashes. If you've ever faced a betrayal or a life-changing event, I want to hear your story. Please share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more powerful, real-life stories that remind us all how strong we truly are. Life may knock us down, but we always have the power to get back up. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than you think.